Coffee with Caregivers production costs are covered by a partnership with United Healthcare and the National Foster Parent Association. We receive no federal or state funding and depend on our constituents and viewers to help us achieve our goals to provide support and services that meet identified needs within our mission. We would like to welcome the viewers of Coffee with Caregivers to the family. The National Foster Parent Association offers several membership opportunities for individuals, child placing agencies, and state and local affiliates. You can join today or donate at nfpaonline.org.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with Caregivers. I'm so excited to introduce you to my guest for today, Ángela Quijada-Banks, and we're going to talk with her in a few minutes, and I know you're going to fall in love with her just like I have the last 6 months or so. But before we really start in on that, I just have to show you my coffee cup for today. Somebody said,
that's nice.
Somebody sent it in the mail. I have no idea who sent it. There was nothing that indicated, a return address. It was from a shipping company.
Wow.
But I want to read a little bit. It says foster parent, and then nutrition facts, serving size, 1 miracle worker, amount per serving, 1 great family. And then it says on the bottom part, this part down here, unconditional love, percent of daily value, 2,000%. Coolness, 1,000%. Spoiling, 800%. Kindness, 500%. Wrong answers, 0%. Great advice, 200%. And here and hero, 1,000%. And then it says exceeds recommended daily joke allowance and a significant source of support and friendship. But isn't that cool? I haven't seen that before. And so whoever sent it to me, if you're watching today, thank you. This is awesome, and I really appreciate it.
That is so nice. Wow.
Isn't that something? I was just when I thought, that looks like a box that a cup would come in. I said, I don't think I ordered any recently or anything like that. And that's what was in there. So isn't that cool?
It's so beautiful. I really, really love that. And the nutritional facts. I just love it.
Well, the one about wrong answers, 0%, I thought, probably not. Over the 27 years that we fostered, I think I probably had a lot of wrong answers, and I sure could have done a lot better with some kids, but I didn't know any better, and I did the best I could, but I know they were probably wrong. So I don't know if I'd have put 0% on that one. But what a great cup. And, your experiences in foster care, I don't know a whole lot about those beyond some stuff that I gleaned from your book that we're going to talk about. So, Ángela, would you just introduce yourself and tell us a little about who you are?
Absolutely. First of all, I just want to share with everybody that we are matching. It was definitely not on purpose, but I'm so glad that we are. It looks so good on you too. So I'm just so happy. Yes. So hello, my name is Ángela Quijada-Banks, and I'm the author of the Black Foster Youth Handbook, 50 plus lessons I learned to successfully age out of foster care and holistically heal. And it's been a journey in my life from, being born in Anaheim, California, and really being a Disney kid that loved good food and really amazing experiences. But then also on the flip side, experiencing really strong levels of trauma and poverty and just so many different things that made me kind of confused. It wasn't just this one narrow view of the world. It was always ever evolving and multiple things happening at once. So my childhood was very much what is really happening, and also pockets of happiness and joy, but lots of confusion. And I think as I got older and I was traveling to different states because my parents would take me to North Carolina sometimes and would stay there for a few months, and then I'd get pulled out of school and like go to Georgia or Arizona, Washington State, Tennessee. So it was a lot of like learning different perspectives from different people and seeing the world in so many different lights, and also trying to understand what it means to be like a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, you know, and so many layers. And I think as I got older and learning about like the history of America, the history of colonization, and also just the history of my family, like my lineage, what my family has gone through, I'm like continuously learning new things. And when I turned 16, I was placed into foster care. At that particular time, I was in a 1-bedroom hotel with my mom, my dad, and my 5 siblings. Sometimes I have to think about it because I just recently learned that I have more siblings than just 5. So I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. But 5 siblings, and it was a not great situation, you know, 1-bedroom hotel. Sometimes we slept on the floor majority of the time. And we just had to like go from hotel to hotel. My mom and my dad weren't like technically together. And so it made things very difficult as far as like having a stable home or house or living arrangement. And eventually, right before I went into foster care, my mom ended up leaving and going, I'm not really sure where. And I was just confused about what everything that was going on. And I didn't take it well. You know, I ended up being mute, and I was a new kid again. So I was trying to understand, you know, what exactly was expected of me as an individual, as a teenager, but also not really having much hope in myself at that point. I just felt like there was no stability. There was no real connection that I had to my parents at that time. It was just a very like trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma. So I ended up in foster care when I was 16, and it was in kinship care, and it ended up not working out. So I ended up separated, me and my sister, and then all my brothers. And, you know, eventually it was time for me to age out. And I didn't have a very strong support system. I wanted to sign myself in until 21, but due to the living situations, I felt very unsafe in that foster home. And at that time, there was something in North Carolina. I was living in North Carolina at the time, and it was called the CARS agreement. And the CARS agreement basically meant that you can sign yourself back into foster care, 18 to 21. However, if anything goes wrong in the foster home or with youth, which was me at the time, it doesn't matter whose fault it was or is, you will be removed. And everything will be closed. They're not going to find another foster home for you. And you just have to go out on your own and figure it all out. So that's kind of what happened to me. I was in a very unsafe situation with my foster parent, which was female at the time, and she had multiple men coming in and out of the home, and several other things going on that wasn't in alignment with what I wanted to do with my life as a college student. And I had very ambitious goals, and she wasn't that much of a supportive person around those things. So I tried to reach out to someone. At that time, I didn't have a Garnet Lightum. I didn't have a social worker. My social worker had retired a couple weeks prior, and my Garnet Lightum was removed from my case a year prior because basically she was trying to support me. She was trying to find me a place to stay in a situation where my social worker had told her and everyone that it was okay for me to spend a couple of nights at the airport. And she was just like, absolutely not. So because of that, she let me stay at her place, and that was automatically, a violation. So I didn't really have that many supports at that time, and I really wasn't connected to that many people. So being given a 7-day notice, which is what happened, I panicked. I had very high anxiety. I was like, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to be here until 21. I'm 19. What's going to happen? And I ended up finding a place on Craigslist, and I moved out. And within 3 days, because I was going to go and go back to school in 5 days. So I was like, I have a shorter timeline, so I can get ready and try to, be present in school and get my work done and all the other things. But that's really what motivated me to writing the book, because I felt like this was so hard for me, and I know that people are going through so much more. As I have a background in political advisory. So when I was 19, I started advising legislation in North Carolina and in Washington, D.C., talking to stakeholders and literally the Children's Bureau about the issues that I was facing, as well as other youth in North Carolina, in California, all throughout the states. And so in 2017, I was able to get a piece of legislation passed with Senator Behringer in North Carolina. And so it was a lot of different things that have motivated the Black Foster Youth Handbook. But just looking back at youth that are, they have their parental rights that are terminated, and they don't know if they're going to be able to connect with their families. And then having like all these different layers of like self-doubt in who they can be after their trauma and after everything that has happened, not having sufficient mental health support, not being able to connect with others because of like trust issues, or being isolated for so long as a youth, and moving and moving and moving and moving, that you just think that every relationship is just going to be temporary.
Right.
So, and understanding how important community really is something that I really wanted to drive home in my book, not just for the youth, but also for the supportive adults, which of course are going to be pervasive throughout the youth's life. So that's a little bit of background around for me. Now it's just been making sure that this mission of revolutionizing foster care, of course, first, if we can, to reunite families, if possible. That doesn't necessarily mean with parents. It could be with aunts or uncles or others. But also recognizing that community is so essential, as we know, and we definitely need to have our youth on the same page, being able to change their mindsets around relationships, and even connecting with themselves, their identity, their self-worth, and beginning to really heal, because youth turn into adults. And, if we're not taking care of things on the back end, meaning our past, then we're just going to continue, one, being very miserable, not connecting to our purpose, and ultimately pushing people away, self-isolating, and possibly even, the saying, hurt people, continuing the cycle of trauma and foster care, which we don't want.
Right. I was talking to one of my sons who came to us and joined our family as a foster child. But then parental rights were terminated 4 years after he joined our family, and we were the fortunate ones to adopt him. And he was always was very, very challenging, and had so much self-doubt, and really what looked like self-hate. And just so much work, and so many people, tried to reach him. And when he was 32 years old, he took off for 10 years when he was about 22. And we didn't know where he was for 10 years. And,
wow.
And at 32, he came home and he said, "Mama, I finally figured out who I am."
Wow.
It took me all these years to figure out who I am and why I am who I am. And he said, I just kept pushing everything away that was good about what was happening in my life, because I was always falling back to, abuse and abandonment. And how could I ever trust anybody to love me if my own parents didn't love me enough to want me? Those feelings. And I mean, what a revelation. And, I look at you and how young you were to be able to work through some of those things. And you had to do a lot of it really on your own. I think that you're an amazing young woman. I hope I tell you that enough. You are. And I've said to you before, there's a goodness in you that just comes out. And I want our viewers to know that you're very usually on Facebook every day or every other day, and with something that I think hits me as profound every time. And I feel like I learn from you on a regular basis, and that others, I think, could learn from you too. So I hope that they will look you up, and kind of get to know the woman who you have become, who is strong. And I believe you've married in this period of time, and you have a very relationship with your husband, and I think he must be very supportive of you.
Yes, he is.
Because the pictures that I see of you together are heartwarming. And
thank you.
They are. You can tell the love between the two of you. And so he's in these adventures right along with you, I guess, right?
Yes, absolutely. Every step of the way, for sure.
So did he have any background like you, or has he come from a whole different background? Or
no, definitely not in foster care. He's just more so, he's a Marine. So he's had more so a background like in poverty, and trauma, but not foster care, but definitely, those different things. And I talk a little bit about that in my book, like how, again, colonization affects not just like, I think when people think of like colonization or white supremacy culture, the surface level, that's like, okay, you're talking about like someone calling someone else the N-word. And it's not even just that, it's a lot deeper. There's a history. There's a lot of other things that people are affected in different ways. And foster care is just one of the ways. But it's a very pervasive in a lot of people's lives. And it doesn't even have to be just people of color. It affects all of us in different ways. And I think that's one thing that I'm also hoping that people begin to become aware of, so that way we can make more lasting change.
Absolutely. I think we're making a better start on it now than we have ever before on a lot of fronts. And certainly we need to do it globally, socially, but in the foster care system, there's much more attention being drawn to that topic, and more action, more policies being developed, and some legislation around it as well that's coming out, funding, for new projects and research and just various things that I was even reading about today. And so I think it's an exciting time to be an advocate.
Yes.
In this child protection realm that we tend to live in, and voices like yours, and certainly many of your peers, are so incredibly important. That you're heard, and you have the ability to be heard. Would you mind telling us a little bit about some of the honors that you've and recognitions you've received since your book has become so popular?
Yes. So I self-published my book September 29th, 2020. And that was, first of all, a whole whirlwind, because just the entire process, I started in February, and it was just like, wow, I have no idea what I'm doing. Let me get on YouTube and try to figure out some stuff. YouTube University at this point, 400, 500, videos later, random self-publishing books that I Googled online. And I'm like, okay, how do I do this? Okay, just trying to like put it together, piece it together. And I reached out to a couple of people that had published books as well, but they hadn't self-published before. They went through like smaller organizations in their community and stuff like that. Yeah. So for me, it was very important for me to be in control of my voice, especially talking about my story and being able to share a lot of the links of what was going on. So just to be able to self-publish, I was like, oh my gosh, I did it. And even still now I'm still processing, but I published a book. It became an Amazon bestseller. And then a couple of months later, I got a notification from NAACP that I was nominated for the NAACP Image Awards for the Black Foster Youth Handbook being an outstanding literary work. Right. So that is still something that is, I'm trying to settle in with that reality. But yes, I've also been receiving multiple awards for the book, as well as for just the leadership that I've been able, and outcome and impact that I've been able to have in the community, and really supporting people to become leaders in their own life as well.
Right. Yeah, I think you're a perfect example of kind of taking the bull by the horns, the old saying that somebody my age would recognize, and saying, I'm going to make a difference for me and for others, right? And you have a friend of mine, a colleague actually, who's a child psychologist, found out I was going to retire at the end of this year. And he said, he called me and he said, Irene, let's write a book together. And I'm like, I want to help write a book. Well, I've written several books, so we can write a book together. I know how to do it. You write on the foster parent advocate side, and I'll write on the child psychologist side, and we'll put all our stories together. And maybe we can write a really good book that would be great for people to read. So I'm actually thinking about doing that, Angela.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be brave and step out and make a commitment to do that too. And you're one of my inspirations. So you did it in such a short period of time. And the value certainly has been recognized by becoming a bestseller so very quickly, and certainly by the awards that you've given. So I hope that people will, if they haven't read your book already, will order it and learn about, everything that you've put in that book, that I think is going to be really helpful to certainly other youth who are going to be exiting foster care. And for those who already have that need help yet, that they're struggling out there and they don't have those connections to people that they need.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the other things about you is that, of all the schools you attended over the years, from your family moving so often and things, and yet your desire to learn, to stay active in school, to make the best of each opportunity, really stands out for me as, an important element in sometimes maybe the success of youth as they exit foster care, and how much support they've had in the educational piece of what they're doing, and how that's supportive that can be as they move forward.
Yes, absolutely. I think that it was so hard. Like, I was a straight A student, and then, 20 schools back to back, going everything until I was like 16, and then still moving schools and stuff. And it was just like, do I even want to make friends anymore? What's the point? Do I even want to make connections? Do I pay attention in school because my grades aren't going to matter because they might not even transfer over to the next school?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's definitely difficult to try to keep your head in the game and like, okay, why am I doing this again? What is the point? So I think overall though, as far as a solution, I think that we definitely need to focus on more stability when we're in foster care as well. Like there can't be all this like 40 different placements, and supportive adults seeing the value of connection with young people and being that, space of, okay, I'm going to make sure that this young person isn't having to move, 15, however many, even 3 times is a lot. My Garnet Lightum, she actually fought for me to stay at my high school that I was at, because I was actually moved, I think a few months into being in a foster care. I was moved to another school where I just completely isolated myself. I was only there for 3 days, luckily, and my Garnet Lightum was like going to the court and everything. But I was just like, oh no, like, and it was my senior year in high school. And I was just like, well, I had been at this other school since sophomore year, which isn't a super long time, to be around in the neighborhood and everything. But it was well enough for me to make some friends,
Sure.
and I was like, okay, I'm going to be graduating with these people and then moving. And my Garden Lightum was like, absolutely not. Like, we're going to have her back over there. And I ended up going back and graduating from that school. And I'm so grateful for my Garden Lightum, because
Absolutely.
that really was so helpful for me to have some kind of element of permanence, outside of still having to move different foster homes and stuff, but still having at least the same school that I was going to.
Right. That's the last 10 years of our fostering experience. We fostered teenagers, and they were all in high school. And it became very clear to us very early on in that last 10 years, that these kids were losing credits because they weren't doing a whole semester. They come to us at 17 and have maybe a third of the credits that they were supposed to have because they'd been moved around so much.
Oh gosh, that's like the worst.
It's the worst. And so we really started working through our Texas Foster Care Association, that we had to do better for our kids. And so we were able to get legislation passed. That, gave kids, when they had to move before the end of a semester, that they had the opportunity to get the credits that they needed. One way or another, that receiving school had to be able to finish up what they were missing, even if they didn't have it on their curriculum. I mean, it's pretty fantastic. And I don't know how many, states have that, but it can be done if you have enough advocates fighting for it. And like, as you well know, right?
Yes.
It was one of those things that, as I started talking to other foster parents who also were fostering teens, and they were all saying, well, but our kids are the same thing. They're so far behind, they can't graduate. And I actually had one girl who was so far behind in school that she didn't graduate till 1 month before her 20th birthday.
Wow.
And she was determined to graduate. So she stayed with us. And that was before you could stay in care after you were 18, right?
Wow.
We didn't have the 21 rule yet. And, and so she lived with us so she could graduate from high school. And, she lost her Medicaid coverage. She lost everything. She was 18. She was out of care, right?
Wow.
It was really sad, but, it was the right thing for her, and it was the right thing for our family. She herself now has a beautiful family with 2 wonderful sons. And, it's just, but she was determined that she was going to graduate from high school, because nobody on her mother or her father's side of the family had ever graduated from high school.
Wow.
Ever. And she was the first.
Wow. And that is so amazing. Wow. And I think about that a lot too. Like when those types of situations come around, it's like, wow, what did the parents go through to not be able to graduate, you know?
Yes.
What was that impact on them that they just could not get through that? And with what you're talking about with young people in foster care, you know, moving to the point that she was almost 20, that really weighs on your self-esteem after a while.
Absolutely. And she, you know, she was blaming herself as being dumb, stupid, you know, all that kind of thing.
Yep.
She just didn't have an opportunity. It wasn't there for her, you know, and once she had the stability, and, you know, we had to go through the paperwork of then her being an adult living in our house, and we had to get reapproved to still foster because we had this other adult living in our home, and, you know, all of that stuff. When she needed to graduate high school, she needed somebody to support her. And, you know, we're very close with them, and her kids call us grandma and grandpa. Her parents were deceased because of drug related deaths. And so, you know, it's good for them and it's good for us that we're all family. But you just never know about some of these things and how they're going to play out. That's why I'm excited about the efforts that are being and will be more so put into place for doing a lot more work up front with families so we don't have to separate children.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, it's just, I know there will be a need for foster care. I mean, I know that because there will be some times when separation is going to happen just for pure safety's sake. But if it's situations where it's more poverty related, you know, those sorts of things, shame on us as a society, I think, that we can't figure out how to help those families stay together.
Yeah. And I think, you know, at that time as a child and even a teenager, I feel like I had this mentality of like, there's someone to blame type of thing. And it's subconscious. Also, I was a kid. It's not like I was supposed to know all these things, but I definitely, as I've gotten older and again, learning the history of colonization and poverty and what has happened, I now understand like the full picture versus like the little piece that was affecting me directly and frustrating me. Like, oh, wow, this is like connected to this whole other really like matrix of crazy situations. And my family just happened to fall in one of those things. And we didn't know how to get out of it. And there wasn't like a mental health support group for families,
right?
Or like financial literacy for free to learn about how to manage money, and not just manage, but get a better income and those types of things. Those things didn't really apply or were not known. And so those are kind of the trickling effects, the trauma that wasn't addressed from my mom, from my dad. And it just, you know, continued in that cycle. So those are things that I'm like, wow, you know, if we really start to see the whole picture, I think we'll be able to create more effective, as I said, lasting, impactful solutions.
Right. I agree. You know, one of the things I want our audience, and our time is starting to run short, so I want to be sure and get this in here, is to remind everybody that our virtual 50th conference is coming up, and it'll be this year, 50 conferences. Yeah, NFPA is hitting a milestone for sure this year. And it's the actual conference is on June 24th through the 26th. And I want people to know that you are one of our featured presenters. And I hope that by visiting with you today and people hearing some of your story, that they'll be motivated to see the website there, nfpaconference.com, and sign up and become a part of this wonderful learning experience and experience people like you who they can learn so much from. So the other thing I would like to remind people of is if they can't participate on June 24th, 25th, and 26th because life happens and we all got schedules, right? And kids need things or whatever, that we're doing this on an on-demand type of virtual conference. So all of the workshops, including yours, will be available to them through the end of September. So if they can't participate on the 24th, 25th, and 26th, they can go 24 hours a day, anytime, any day, all the way through the end of September to take all 12 of the courses in order to get the training certificate if that's something that they need. So I think it's a very unique way that we're putting this together, recognizing the hectic schedules of families, right? The hectic schedules of caseworkers and social workers who work with families, that they just don't have 3 days to just sit, right, and listen to their virtual Zooms or whatever all day long. And that's not realistic anymore. And I'm so proud of our board of directors for coming up with this great idea to, do it on demand for 3 extra months and give people plenty of time to take the courses, take them again if they want to, maybe then catch everything they wanted to the first time. They can take them as many times as they want. Really maybe share some of what they're learning with other caregivers who, for whatever reason, are not able to participate in the conference. I know that people will enjoy you. I just want to say that I'm a pretty good. I have the ability to read people pretty well after all these years. And, there is a greatness in you, Ángela. And I say that very sincerely. And I just am so excited to watch you grow and influence people for many years to come.
Aw, thank you.
You're welcome. Do you have any last final words for folks before we say goodbye?
Well, what I will say is that I'm really, really excited to be a part of your event. I think that people will really enjoy it. Not just my segment, but everyone that you have there. And I checked out like some of the information and stuff on the website, and I was like, okay, get excited about that. So people really need to go ahead and, schedule it in their calendar, make it a priority, because it's definitely something that is necessary to be top of mind, especially if you consider yourself like a change maker, someone that wants to influence something in the world, whether that's policy, whether that's, a young person's life, whether that's your own life, I think it's very, very important and necessary. So just thank you so much for having me be a part of the event and this conversation. I'm really, really excited.
Well, that's wonderful. So that concludes another Coffee with Caregivers session. And again, my wonderful, wonderful guest. Thank you so much. And we'll see everybody next week. Bye-bye.
This episode is brought to you in partnership with our friends at United Healthcare. For more information about United Healthcare, please visit www.uhc.com.